that flips everything upside down. You don't even notice it coming. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's just a voice. A whisper in the midst of your confusion. A nudge when you've lost your way. A question that breaks through the noise of your mind. Follow me. Those two words have rung throughout history. Spoken to fishermen along the shores of Galilee, to money-hidden collectors of taxes, to broken souls who never imagined they'd be summoned. But what if he's still saying them? What if God, at this very moment, as you scroll, search, and hunger for something greater, Jesus is still saying the same to you? Follow me. Not follow religion, not follow rules, not follow the crowd, but follow after me. The living word, the breath that breathed you, the truth that's been chasing you clandestinely your whole life. Prior to the miracles, prior to the cross, prior to the resurrection, there was an invitation, and every invitation mandates a choice. When Jesus said, "Follow me," he wasn't seeking your perfection. He was seeking your attention. He didn't start with doctrine. He started with a direction. Because in a status-conscious, risk-averse, same old world, Jesus looked into the faces of ordinary people and invited them to leave behind all that they thought made them who they were. To follow him was to take a step into uncertainties, to exchange what was familiar for what was eternal. Imagine yourself there, sand beneath your feet on the beach, seaweed and salt scent on the wind. You're just doing your job. Another day, another net, another catch. Then this stranger walks by. There is something in his eyes, not judgment, not pity, but understanding. As if he looks at every failure, every dream, every secret, and calls your name anyway. And then he says, "Follow me." Something deep within you stirs, not in your head, in your soul. Because the voice is not like a command, it is like home. And before you can make sense of it, before you can figure it out, you cast your net. You abandon everything, and your life, as you knew it, comes to an end that day. Something far better, however, starts. You understand, when Jesus tells us, "Follow me," he's not telling you to become religious. He's telling you to become alive. He's challenging you to emerge from autopilot, from numbing routine, from the shallow quest for validation, from the clamor of the world's approbation. He's calling you to a life where meaning isn't measured in success, but in surrender, where you don't merely have faith in God, you accompany him. But here's the thing most people miss. It's not point A to point B. It's a whole new person in the making. It's not moving. It's being remade. You can't walk with him and remain the same. Each step with him requires the killing of something untrue and the giving birth to something true. Jesus' call is not come and know me. It's come and journey with me. The knowing comes afterwards. Faith is the first step. That's the secret. You don't need to know everything to start. You just need to have enough heart to take the step. And maybe that's what he's telling you today. Follow me. Even if you don't know where it leads, even if it's going to ask you to let go of what's comfortable, even if it breaks the version of you you've outgrown, because he's not asking to get you somewhere. He's trying to awaken you into who you were born to be. And in your heart, you know it. Something deep inside of you knows that voice. The one that cuts through your fears and says, "You were made for better than this." This is where all true journeys begin. Not with a map, but with a voice. Not with control, but trust. Not in affirmation, but in abdication. And maybe today, right now, Jesus is still standing at the edge of your ordinary life, whispering the same two words that changed everything 2,000 years ago. Follow me. Not, When Jesus said, "Follow me," he did not hand them a map. He did not tell them where they would sleep, how they would be fed, or what next. He just said 2 words and waited. It's a small thing, but it wasn't, because those 2 words are direct contraries of the part of you that wants control. The thing is, surrender always, always, always feels like you're dying. And in a way, you are. Not the death of your body, but the death of your illusion. The death of the part of you that clings to the notion that safety equals control, meaning equals comfort, that success is the culmination of having it all together. To be a follower of Jesus is to let go of oneself. And the human mind is conditioned to resist this with every ounce it has. Psychologists call it ego defense. It's that reflexive response that tries to protect your sense of self, not to allow you to enter into the unknown. But here's the paradox. What protects you from being hurt keeps you from being transformed. When Jesus asks you to follow, he's not asking to steal from you. He's asking to set you free from what's holding you back. Your attachments, your pride, your need to prove, your fear of rejection. The fishermen who left their nets, they didn't leave their profession. They left their security, their identity, their sense of self-worth. In modern parlance, it's akin to leaving the one thing that defines you, leaving the photo that gives you security, for the voice that promises nothing other than this: you won't be the same. And that is what everyone fears, because we say we want change, but what we truly crave is transformation without loss, growth without sorrow, new life without abandoning the old one. But Jesus never did promise that to us. He promised something much better: freedom. Let's talk about freedom, because the world has taught us a version of it that's completely upside down. The world teaches us that freedom is doing whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want. But Jesus flips it around. He teaches us that freedom is no longer being controlled by your wants. True liberty is not the absence of limitation. It's the absence of bondage. It's when your wants no longer own you, your dreads no longer manipulate you, and your past no longer controls you. That's the kind of freedom that can only be found by submitting to something or someone greater than yourself. When Jesus says to you, "Follow me," he's inviting you to move out of self-sufficiency and into God's sufficiency. It's not weakness, it's awakening. Because when you cease to be your own savior, you finally open up space for the true one. The greatest act the human mind struggles to accomplish is to trust with no control. To simply say, "I don't know what tomorrow will be like, but I know who I'm walking with." That's not blind faith. That's bold faith. Because you're opting to believe in the unseen over the unknown. And that's where psychology intersects with spirituality. With each act of surrender, you are reprogramming your brain. With each choice to trust rather than fear, you create new pathways of peace into your brain. Neuroscience now confirms what the Bible has said for centuries. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. When you release attempting to control, your brain shifts from anxiety mode to connection mode. You stop living in fight or flight and start living in faith and flow. You begin to see you were never in control to begin with. You were only grasping the delusion that you were, and it was a dense one. When you put it down, you don't forfeit power. You discover a more potent one waiting to run through you at all times. That's why being a follower of Jesus is so intimidating and freeing, because he doesn't merely lead you to new places. He leads you to your true self, not the one conditioned by fear, not the one conditioned by performance, but the one conditioned by presence. The disciples didn't follow Jesus because they understood him. They followed him because, for the very first time ever, they felt understood, they felt seen. And when you're truly seen, you're ready to abandon everything that isn't real. Think about it. If you ever felt the pull to change, to break away from what's no longer you, that is the same request. When Jesus told us to follow me, he wasn't speaking to your reason. He was speaking to your desire. The desire for truth, the desire for peace, the desire to lay down pretending you're okay when you're not once and for all. That's the beckoning which keeps whispering, there's more than this. And the only way to find it is to follow. Surrender always stings like loss at first, but it's never loss. It's exchange. You surrender the illusion of control, and you gain the reality of peace. You release what's temporary, and you're given what's eternal. So if your life is doubtful, if God is quiet, if the way is indistinct, don't mistake that for abandonment. It's generally the exact moment you're being led, since the silence is not absence, it's invitation. It's Jesus speaking again. Follow me. And maybe that's the instant you realize the thing you're afraid to lose was never the thing holding you back. He was. Each invitation costs. When Jesus said, "Follow me," he wasn't subtle. He didn't promise comfort. He promised change. He never spoke, "Follow me and all shall be well." He did say, "Follow me and you shall have life." But new life to begin. The old must perish. That's the section that we like to leave out. The section where following costs something. Think of Peter. He left his net, the symbol of his wage, his security, his identity. For years life had been routine. Cast the net, draw it in, count the fish, go home. But when Jesus called, Peter didn't quit a job. He quit a world that made sense. And that's exactly what makes this story timeless. Because every generation is faced with having to make this same decision. When Jesus says, "Follow me," he's asking you to let go of the things that once protected you, but now hold you in captivity. Maybe to you, the net. We all have something we cling to when the world is frightening. But here's the irony. You can't walk with Jesus with your hands full. Somewhere along the line, you have to release what's in your hand so you can take his instead. Detachment is the cost of following. Not because God is attempting to punish you, but because God is attempting to prepare you. He knows the things you are holding onto today can become the burden that holds you back tomorrow. And so, individually, he asks, will you trust me with this? Your security, your future, your reputation, your control. Each one an invitation, each invitation a layer of freedom. The disciples walked with Jesus into storms, into cities that rejected them, into times where they questioned everything. And yet, they kept walking. Because somewhere deep within, they knew the truth that every follower someday comes to understand. It costs everything to be a follower of Jesus, but it costs so much more not to. To hold on to your comfort is to remain stuck. To maintain what's in the process of dying is to forfeit what's being born. To retain your net is to miss the miracle on the other side of obedience. Jesus told us in Matthew 16, "Whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever gives up his life for my sake shall gain it." That is not a threat. It's the truth of transformation. You can't cling to the old you and become your authentic you at the same time. To give up your life is to release the counterfeit version of you, the one based on fear, pride, and self-sufficiency, so that you may discover the everlasting version, the one built on grace, love, and divine plan. That's the transaction of greatness. You give up what's temporary and receive what's permanent. But let's get real. That hurts. Transformation always does. When God speaks to you up, He sometimes pulls you through a season of shattering, not to destroy you, but to shake off what no longer fits the person you're evolving into. It's like peeling skin off, like pruning a vine. It's like loss, but it's really preparation, because only the open palms can encompass fresh blessing. Only the broken earth can sow new seed. If you have ever lost something after saying yes to God, you need to understand this. You didn't lose it. You traded it. You traded a smaller life so you could receive a larger one. You traded predictability for purpose. You gave up control for calling. You gave up safety for significance. And yes, it's costly. But the payoff is priceless. When the disciples gave up everything, they didn't just chase a man. They chased meaning. They chased the one who would take fishermen and make them world changers, tax collectors and make them truth tellers, and broken souls and make them beacons of grace. They didn't know it then, but every yes was writing the story of an endless kingdom. And now that very voice still speaks in passing through time, still reaching into modern turmoil, still calling everyday people into uncommon call. Follow me. It is not just a call to motion. It is a call to significance. It is not just a call to faith. It is a call to transformation. So what is it going to cost? All that which is insincere, all that's breakable, all that's fleeting. But what will you get? All that's real, all that's permanent, all that endures. Because in the end, the only thing you'll ever regret is that part of you that never obeyed. Following Jesus is not all about following after Him. It's about going along with Him until His way becomes your way, His heart beats as your heartbeat, and His Spirit becomes your strength. Change is not something that happens once. It's something that happens with every step you take, because every time you follow, something inside you changes. Something dies, something's born. First, Jesus' followers followed bodily, from town to town, from shore to shore. But as the days went by, they tuned into something deeper. They weren't just changing locations, they were changing identities. The fisherman was gaining faith. The skeptic was in learning surrender. The tax collector was in learning mercy. Every day with Jesus was like a mirror, showing to them not who they were, but who they could be. That's what transformation looks like. It's not lightning from the sky. It's not instant perfection. It's the slow, sacred work of becoming. Living with Jesus doesn't eliminate your flaws overnight. It brings them into the light so grace can heal them. He doesn't embarrass you into transformation. He walks alongside you in it. He doesn't say, "Be perfect." He says, "Walk with me and you'll become." That's the beauty of it. He doesn't require transformation before the walk. He promises transformation through the walk. There is such a thing in psychology called cognitive dissonance. The mental discomfort you feel when your outdated beliefs no longer match up with your new life. That's what happens when you start following Jesus. Your spirit begins to stretch beyond your previous mentality. Things that once seemed like the norm begin to burden you. The talk that once delighted you now leaves you empty. The things you once justified as habits no longer feel cozy, because change hurts. You can't take the same mind into a new existence, and Jesus knows that. That's why He doesn't just change your circumstances, He changes your mind. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Romans 12:2. Transformation starts when you begin thinking differently, when you stop asking, "What will I lose if I follow?" and start asking, "What will I lose if I don't?" When you serve Jesus long enough, you start seeing the little things. You respond slower. You forgive earlier. You stop seeking approval. You start craving truth. Your fears don't disappear overnight. but they stop having hold of you. Your wounds don't heal overnight, but they stop defining you. You start realizing that peace isn't a place, it's a person. And that person accompanies you every day, even when you don't feel worthy. That is transformation. When grace feels easier than guilt, when presence outweighs pressure, when you finally achieve it, you do not follow Jesus to receive love. You follow him because you have already been loved. The disciples had not yet met Jesus when he was on earth. They often misunderstood his words, argued with one another, and even doubted his authority. But something happens when you keep walking. Revelation begins to replace confusion. Faith begins to replace fear. Love begins to replace ego. Transformation doesn't happen in one miracle moment. It happens in the 1,000 little moments. You choose to keep taking one step forward when it would be easier to turn around. Every act of obedience is an act of becoming. Every yes remolds your soul. Maybe you've been walking with Jesus for a while and you don't feel any different yet. Maybe you still wrestle with the same thoughts, the same habits, the same fears. Listen, transformation isn't measured by how fast you're moving, but by where you're headed. Even when you fall, even when you fail, so long as you're moving toward him, you're growing. Grace doesn't require you to never stumble. It requires you to get up and just keep moving. And one day, and sometimes you won't even realize it, you'll turn around and be able to see how far you've come. The person who used to live in fear now walks in faith. The one who once felt as if they were invisible now knows they are not. The one who once ran to the world for approval now runs for divine intention. That's change. It's not boisterous, it's not flashy, it's slow, but it's actual. Because following Jesus doesn't just change your path, it changes your being. You start to walk in peace where there once was panic. You speak life where there has been silence. You see individuals not as issues to fix, but as souls to love. You begin to reflect the one you follow. Following Jesus isn't the end of your book, it's the rewriting of it. And the further you walk with him, the more you notice. He's not leading you somewhere new. He's leading you back to yourself, the version of you that was birthed in love and called by name before the world ever broke you. When Jesus said, "Follow me," he wasn't trying to steal your life. He was trying to give you one. Because what he gives isn't ordinary life, it's abundance life. A life that can't be shaken by fear, or destroyed by loss, or branded by the world. Following Jesus doesn't exactly make life easier, but it always makes life richer, more real. When you walk with him long enough, you realize something deep. You didn't lose anything that really, truly mattered. You just made room for what was everlasting. The things that you thought you could never get along without. You outgrew them. And in their stead, you gained peace. Not the peace of perfect circumstances, but the peace that is left when everything else has gone. The kind of peace that does not compute intellectually, because it is not of this world. My peace I give to you, not as the world gives. John 14:27. That's the first reward of obedience, peace that does not make sense. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of purpose. The second advantage is clarity. When you are following Jesus, confusion fades. The fog of doubt lifts. You stop chasing everything and start chasing the one thing that really counts. Because when your soul is in harmony with your Creator, you stop fighting against your own blueprint. You begin to live from the inside out. You begin to see how everything, even the pain, even the waiting, even the detours, was never wasted. Each scar is incorporated into your witness. Each defeat becomes incorporated into your training. That's how Jesus does it. He takes the broken shards and utilizes them as building blocks for destiny. There's also joy, not the cautious joy that's dependent on what other people do to you, but the kind that bursts forth from who's with you. When Jesus is your north, joy stops being an emotion and becomes a posture. Even in sorrow, there's hope. Even in loss, there's love. Even in the dark, there's light. Because when you're following the light of the world, darkness can surround you, but it can't snuff you out. And then there's purpose. The moment you start following Jesus, you become part of a story greater than your own. Your life no longer becomes random. Your pain no longer is in vain. Your life is a page in the divine plan of salvation. You're not just going through the motions anymore. You're sent. Every meeting, every struggle, every year is part of something holy. When you say yes to Christ, you don't merely receive forgiveness, you receive mission. He transforms your ordinary life with holy purpose. You are His hands to heal, His voice to calm, His heart to love. That's why Jesus' followers shine differently. They stride differently. They speak differently. Because once you've known true grace, you can't go back to living like you're unloved. Once you've tasted real freedom, you can't go back to pretending like you're in charge. Once you've encountered unconditional love, you can't help but give it away. That's the best thing about following. You start to reflect the one you're following. His heart of compassion becomes yours. His place of strength becomes your sense of security. His vision becomes your sense of purpose. And then there's something even more profound, belonging. In a world that is full of noise and isolation, following Jesus gives you identity, not on what you've done, but on who you are because of Him. You don't have to prove yourself anymore. You simply need to walk it out. You know that the God who spoke worlds into being knows your name as well. He's not distant. He's not stern. He's with you always. That's the vow. I am with you always, even to the end of the age. You might walk through fire, but you'll not walk alone. You might lose everything, but you'll never lose Him. And maybe that's the greatest miracle of all, that in following Jesus, you don't just find heaven when you get to the other side. You find heaven bursting into your life today. Heaven in how you forgive. Heaven in how you heal. Heaven in how you love people who can't even love you back. Because to live for Jesus isn't just to change where you go. It changes the way that you live right here, right now. Every act of love becomes an echo of eternity. Every second of peace is a taste of paradise. And every yes is a seed that germinates into something beautiful in your heart and in the hearts of those who glimpse your radiance. So what do you receive when you walk with Jesus? Everything the world can't give you, and nothing the world can ever take from you. You receive peace that sticks around in storms, joy that survives sorrow, purpose that outlasts success, love that's always in supply. You receive Him, and in receiving Him, you finally come home. We've heard the words before. We've read them, sung them, quoted them. But have we ever really listened to them? Follow me. 2 words. No strings. No bargaining, just a request. And even now, it's still ringing. Through the cacophony of your mind, through the weight of your doubts, through the chaos of the world, that same voice is still calling. Not because you're perfect, but because you're loved. The question isn't whether Jesus is still speaking. The question is whether we're still listening. He's not shouting, He's whispering, because His voice doesn't compete with your distractions. It waits for your attention. And in that quiet place between your breath and your heartbeat, He's still saying, follow me. Maybe you've been searching, trying to fix yourself, trying to find your purpose, your peace, your identity, in people, in success, in the endless scroll of this world. And maybe, for a while, it worked. But lately, you've started to feel that emptiness again, that quiet ache that says, there has to be more than this. That's not failure. That's the voice of your soul remembering what it was made for. You were never created to walk alone. You were never created to be your own savior. You were meant to walk with him. When Jesus spoke the words, "Follow me," he wasn't recruiting. He was redeeming. He wasn't asking you to religion. He was asking you to relationship. He knows your story, every chapter, every failure, every scar, and he still says your name. He doesn't need your perfection. He simply needs your yes to healing, your yes to peace, your yes to being the person you were always supposed to be. It won't always be easy to be a follower of Jesus. You'll question, you'll have storms, you'll slog through senseless valleys, but you'll never walk alone. Because the same voice that beckoned you away from your former life will walk alongside you in your new one. He will not leave you when it gets dark. He will not leave you when you mess up. He will not give up calling you. Even when you're no longer listening, that's grace. And grace never gives up. So maybe this is your moment, your line in the sand, your invitation to stop running from what you already know is true. You don't have to be smart. You just need to move, because that's where every miracle begins, with movement. One step of faith, one moment of letting go, one breath of yes. And when you do move, he'll be there with you too. Imagine standing on that same exact beach where Peter stood. The waves are breaking softly. The breeze is filled with the aroma of salt and morning. You hear his voice, gentle but authoritative. Follow me. And this time, you don't hesitate. You release your net, the fear, the shame, the old identity, the old life, and you walk toward the one who has been walking toward you all along. Following Jesus doesn't just change your direction, it changes your destiny. He takes the fragments of your story and weaves them into something eternal. He makes pain and turns it into purpose, weakness and turns it into strength, and brokenness and turns it into something beautiful. He doesn't offer you a new life. He offers you new eyes to see it with. So wherever you are right now, in your bedroom, on your drive home, in the quiet after a crazy day, this is not a coincidence. This moment was penned for you. This is your invitation. This is your call. Follow me. Let those words sink in, not as a command, but as an invitation. For when you answer yes, everything is changed. Not all at once, but one step at a time. And as you journey, you'll notice something beautiful. You were never really following him to a destination. You were following him into transformation. He's still calling. Do you hear him? Follow me.